Stop for a moment. Chosen one. You don't even realize what you've just done, do you? Heaven does. Today, in a moment that felt ordinary to you, something extraordinary happened in the unseen. You didn't break. You didn't lash out. You didn't fall into the trap that was meant to steal your peace. Instead, you stood still. You chose faith. You chose silence. And right then, heaven smiled. There's a sound echoing through the spiritual realm right now. It's the sound of God's laughter. Not laughter of mockery, but of victory. Because the battle that's been circling your life for weeks just collapsed without you even realizing it. The enemy thought today would be your breaking point, but heaven turned it into your crowning moment. That quiet decision you made to forgive, to trust, to stay calm, just became a weapon sharper than any sword. And while you felt tired, thinking nothing changed, God was standing over your story saying, "This one gets it now. This one has learned to fight without fear. So don't underestimate what happened today." The smallest act of faith became the loudest declaration in heaven. The test ended. The tables turned. And somewhere above you, God is laughing. Not because you failed, but because you finally won. Chosen one, heaven has moments. Moments when time on earth slows, but eternity reacts. Moments when a single act from a human heart creates a sound in the unseen realm that shakes everything. And today was one of those moments. You may have thought it was just another day. You woke up weary, carried your usual burdens, faced familiar challenges. But something in your spirit chose differently. You decided to keep walking when quitting would have been easier. You chose restraint when anger wanted to lead. You held your peace when chaos begged for reaction. And that one choice, quiet, unseen, uncelebrated, became thunder in heaven. The moment you chose faith over fear, heaven laughed. Not a laugh of amusement, but of victory. The kind that says, "It's done." Because laughter is God's language of triumph. Psalm 2 says, "He who sits in the heavens laughs." Not because the battle isn't serious, but because the outcome has already been secured. And when you refuse to break, when you refuse to react, you aligned with that divine certainty. You've been through storms that tried to silence you, nights where tears soaked the pillow and prayers felt unanswered, seasons where your faith was tested so fiercely that silence felt like defeat. But today, something shifted. Heaven saw the moment when pain could no longer provoke you, when the same trap that used to catch you lost its power. That's when God smiled. Because heaven recognizes maturity not by words, but by response. When you stayed calm under pressure, the spiritual realm took notice. When you chose love over retaliation, light broke through the cloud of confusion that had been circling your life, and you didn't see it, but in that instant, chains snapped in the unseen. Old cycles dissolved. The assignment sent against your peace lost its strength, and the angels stationed over your destiny exhaled in relief, because the test was passed. Heaven's laughter isn't random. It's the sound of prophecy being fulfilled. When God laughs, it means the plan of darkness just collapsed under the weight of divine design. And right now, that's what's echoing over your life. The very thing the enemy thought would break you has become your confirmation. The attack backfired. The test revealed strength you didn't know you had. And what once felt like warfare has turned into worship, not through words, but through endurance. Heaven's perspective is different from ours. You saw a hard day. God saw a defining day. You saw exhaustion. Heaven saw evidence. Evidence that the refining worked. Evidence that your spirit is now trained to respond with peace, not panic. That's why heaven didn't whisper today. It laughed. Because laughter marks finality. It means the fight is over and victory has been written in permanent ink. There's a sacred irony in how this works. You were tired. You felt unseen. You even questioned if your prayers were doing anything. But that very humility, that quiet endurance, disarmed everything that was sent to destroy you. You didn't have to shout. You didn't have to prove yourself. You simply stood still in truth. And that's what ended the warfare. Chosen one, God's laughter is not cruel. It's creative. It doesn't mock your pain. It transforms it. It's the laughter of a parent watching their child finally walk after so many falls. It's the joy of heaven, realizing they finally understand the power of stillness. So while you went about your day thinking nothing changed, everything did. The atmosphere around you realigned. What was blocked began to move. What was delayed began to form. And the spiritual opposition that once shadowed your path began to crumble under divine amusement. Because the moment heaven laughs, darkness loses sound. The vibration of fear cannot coexist with the frequency of joy. And today, your obedience produced that frequency. Your stillness made God laugh, and in that laughter, your victory was sealed. Chosen one, tell me something. Have you ever wondered why heaven stays silent when you do the right thing? Why your acts of obedience often go unnoticed, unrewarded, even misunderstood? It's because obedience is never meant to be applauded by people. It's meant to move dimensions. Every quiet decision you make in faith releases energy in the unseen world. And while no one else may notice, the entire spiritual realm reacts. The power of obedience doesn't come from being seen. It comes from being consistent when unseen. It's what you do when nobody's watching that tells heaven who you truly are. It's the prayer you whisper when you don't feel strong enough to pray. It's the forgiveness you give without hearing an apology. It's the peace you choose when your emotions scream for revenge. Those are the moments that heaven writes into your record as proof of maturity. Today, heaven didn't just see your action, it felt your alignment. Because obedience isn't about rules, it's about resonance. Every time you obey divine direction, your energy syncs more perfectly with heaven's frequency. And that's what makes you unstoppable. You're no longer reacting from pain, you're responding from purpose. The world celebrates loud victories. Heaven celebrates silent obedience. Because true obedience carries authority that doesn't need attention. You don't have to defend your peace anymore. It defends you. When you stay aligned in the storm, the enemy loses his access. When you stay kind under pressure, heaven takes over the battle. Maybe you've been wondering lately, why am I always the one who has to forgive first? Or, why do I keep being tested in the same way? It's because you've been chosen to master the higher discipline, the discipline of stillness. Obedience for a chosen one isn't about perfection, it's about trust. It's choosing to act from faith, even when it makes no logical sense. Heaven measures obedience not in outcomes, but in effort. The moment you decide, I'll keep doing what's right even if no one claps, the divine clock resets. Every act of quiet obedience becomes a weapon, sharper than any word, stronger than any emotion. Because nothing confuses darkness more than someone who stays peaceful in the fire. Think about it. When you stopped defending yourself, didn't peace eventually prove your innocence? When you stopped chasing what left, didn't something better appear? That's how heaven works. It allows you to look powerless while secretly empowering you from within. Your obedience isn't weakness, it's strategy. It pulls heaven's favor closer while disarming every plan against you. Right now, the very walls that once confined you are turning into gates. The prayers you thought went unanswered were actually being stored, accumulating, maturing, waiting for perfect timing. Your obedience was the key. It unlocked the sequence that heaven had been waiting for. And today, that sequence is activated. You see, chosen one, your silent endurance was never silenced to God. Heaven heard every sigh, every "I'll trust you anyway," every "I'll forgive again." Those moments formed a melody, a song of obedience that angels can recognize. That's why things around you are shifting now. The energy that once resisted you has lost its authority, because your obedience raised your spiritual rank. The greatest miracles are never born in comfort. They're born in compliance. You followed the whisper instead of the crowd. You stayed faithful when there was no evidence to justify it. And that posture of quiet strength created ripples of victory far beyond what you can see. Chosen one, don't underestimate what your yes means in heaven. It's not small, it's seismic. Every obedient act becomes an echo in the divine. And today, that echo turned into laughter. Because God knows what's about to unfold. Heaven laughs when you obey without proof. Because that's when your faith graduates from belief to embodiment. That's when the Creator says, now they're ready for the blessing that matches their discipline. You may feel small today, but your obedience just moved mountains. It changed the vibration around your name. It made the unseen forces bow, and it reminded the heavens exactly why you were chosen. Chosen one. Do you realize how powerful you are when you don't react? Do you understand how many battles you've already won simply by staying silent when everything inside you wanted to fight back? That's not weakness, that's warfare. Heaven calls it spiritual restraint. It's the ability to feel the fire, to see the chaos, to hear the provocation, and still choose P. That moment of control is not passive, it's explosive in the unseen realm. Because every time you refuse to respond in anger, you strip darkness of its fuel. The enemy feeds on reaction, on noise, on panic, on fear. When you deny him that energy, you starve his influence. There's a reason your triggers have been tested lately. Every insult, every misunderstanding, every delay wasn't random. It was a setup to test your restraint. Heaven has been training your spirit to respond like a general, not a soldier, because chosen ones don't fight with emotion, they fight with alignment. And your restraint has become your most dangerous weapon. The enemy expected you to explode. He expected your words to undo your progress. He thought the pressure would make you fold. But instead, you stayed quiet, calm, collected, grounded in purpose. And that silence, that's when heaven moved. Because when a chosen one stops reacting, heaven starts responding. Every battle you refuse to fight in the flesh becomes a victory won in the spirit. Your peace confuses the enemy more than your shouting ever could. Your stillness sends a message through the realms. This one can't be provoked anymore. And when heaven hears that, it promotes you. Because restraint isn't repression. It's recognition. Recognition that you no longer need to prove who you are. You just need to be who you are. Have you noticed how hard it's been to stay calm lately? How the smallest things seem designed to provoke you? It's because your spiritual rank just increased. And the enemy always tests the level you claim. He doesn't attack where you're weak. He attacks where you're about to grow stronger, but you've already passed the test. Every time you swallowed your pride instead of defending it, a new layer of your destiny unlocked. Every time you chose silence instead of sarcasm, heaven built a wall of protection around your name. Spiritual restraint is sacred training. It teaches you to trust divine timing instead of human timing. It's realizing you don't need to clap back when God is already speaking louder than any rumor. The noise around you doesn't require your participation. It requires your peace, because peace carries authority. And every time you hold that posture, you remind the universe that your soul is no longer reactive. It's anchored. That's why angels are drawn to stillness. They can only operate in frequency that matches divine order. When you stay calm, you create a spiritual environment where miracles can actually manifest. Your restraint opens a doorway for heaven's intervention. It's not a delay, it's a signal that says, this one trusts God enough to let him handle it. Think about it. What if the battle wasn't about winning the argument, but about proving that you didn't need to fight it at all? What if heaven's real test wasn't whether you'd speak, but whether you'd stay silent? Because silence requires faith. It's easy to defend yourself when you're misunderstood. It's hard to let God do it for you. But every time you do, He does it better. Chosen one, your restraint has become your roar. Your calm is now your weapon. And heaven is laughing in victory because restraint means graduation. You no longer respond like the person you used to be. And that's the greatest proof of transformation. The old you fought to be right. The new you lets God prove it in His time. And that's why things are about to shift quickly in your favor. Spiritual restraint doesn't make you passive. It makes you precise. It redirects your energy from reaction to creation. It places you in harmony with divine orchestration, where every battle is already won before you lift a finger. This is what makes chosen ones different. Your silence is not surrender. It's strategy. So the next time you feel that fire rise inside you, remember, not every battle is yours to fight. Some are won simply by refusing to engage. Your stillness is not weakness. It's heaven's way of saying, you've learned how to fight like me. And once a chosen one learns that, the war is already over. Chosen one, let me ask you something. When was the last time you truly sat in stillness, not waiting for an answer, not searching for a sign, just being? And if you did you notice how peace began to speak louder than thoughts? That's not imagination. That's heaven communicating. Stillness is not the absence of movement. It's the presence of divine order. It's where the noise of the world fades and the voice of God starts to echo through your spirit. Most people never find that place because they fear silence. But chosen ones learn that silence isn't empty. It's full of instruction. When you stopped running and decided to rest, you didn't lose momentum. You found alignment. Heaven never asked you to exhaust yourself proving faith, only to hold still long enough to witness it work. Because stillness is faith's final form. It's saying, I trust the Creator so much that I no longer need to control what's coming. You see, chosen one, your victory isn't created by movement, it's revealed by peace. And that's why the enemy's greatest goal is to keep you restless. If he can't destroy you, he'll distract you. If he can't take your faith, he'll stir your fear, because he knows you can't hear heaven clearly while you're anxious. But the moment you become still, heaven takes over the battlefield. Do you remember those times when everything went silent, when no doors opened, no messages came, no answers appeared? You thought heaven forgot you, didn't you? But that silence wasn't absence, it was activation. Because in the stillness, heaven fights battles that noise would interrupt. Your stillness gives permission for angels to operate. And right now, that's exactly what's happening in your life. The greatest victories are never announced with fanfare. They arrive disguised as peace. You stop worrying, and suddenly the problem resolves itself. You stop chasing, and what's meant for you arrives effortlessly. That's what heaven's laughter sounds like, peace returning after chaos. Stillness is the proof that heaven is in control. When you become still, you create an atmosphere where miracles can find you. You start vibrating at the frequency of divine timing, where everything you need comes without striving. That's why your quiet days matter more than your loud ones. When you rest in God's rhythm, you step out of delay and into flow. Stillness doesn't mean inaction. It means intentional peace, knowing that every battle has already been accounted for in the divine script. The storm may still rage, but your soul stays anchored. And in that anchoring, victory is born. The Red Sea didn't part because of panic. It parted when Moses stood still and watched the hand of God move. That same command is being whispered to your spirit now. Be still and know. Chosen one, you've fought enough. You've explained enough. You've worried enough. Now heaven is saying, let me take it from here. The silence that once scared you has become your shield. Every unanswered question, every delayed blessing, every door that stayed closed, they were all protecting your timing, not denying your worth. Stillness is where divine momentum hides. Because when you stop pushing, the universe starts pulling. When you stop talking, revelation starts speaking. And when you stop running, grace starts catching up. You were never meant to live in constant battle mode. You were meant to stand so still that heaven can display victory through you. The noise of your past can't reach you here. The opinions of others lose their grip when you dwell in peace. This is the realm of authority, where your calm terrifies darkness more than your confrontation ever could. Because in stillness, you've finally realized you're not fighting for victory, you're standing in it. And that's what makes this chapter of your life different. You've stopped chasing and started embodying. You've stopped proving and started becoming. The old energy that once drained you is dissolving because your new weapon is rest. Stillness is not surrender. It's strategy. It's the Creator saying, watch what happens when you stop moving and let me move for you. So when the world demands reaction, stay quiet. When chaos demands attention, remain centered. When fear whispers that you're doing nothing, remind it, I'm doing everything by standing still. Because chosen one, your stillness isn't silence, it's warfare disguised as peace. And that peace is proof that heaven has already won. Chosen one, have you ever stopped and asked yourself, what does it mean when heaven laughs? And what if that laughter has nothing to do with mockery, but everything to do with completion? Because that's what's happening right now. Heaven is laughing, not at you, but for you. That divine laughter is the sound of the test ending. It's the vibration that echoes through the unseen realm when purpose finally outruns pain. God's laughter is never cruel. It's the purest sound in the universe, the sound of something that once seemed impossible, now unfolding exactly as He designed. It's the laughter of assurance, of prophecy fulfilled, of a father saying, I told you I'd bring you through this. For months, maybe years, you've been walking through spiritual exams that felt endless. You've been tested in patience, faith, surrender, and restraint. Every delay felt personal. Every silence felt like rejection. And still, you stayed. Still, you believed. Still, you kept showing up with faith, even when you couldn't see the results. And today, that perseverance has reached heaven's threshold. This is what happens when a test ends. Heaven releases laughter, because laughter is the language of victory. It's God's way of saying, the enemy overplayed his hand, and now his plans have failed. The same test that tried to break you actually revealed your strength. The pressure that made you cry also made you ready. And now heaven laughs, because the test no longer defines you, it crowns you. You see, chosen one, you've been living in the tension between promise and proof. You knew what God said, but life didn't seem to match it. You were caught in that gap, the divine hallway between instruction and manifestation. But every test in that hallway had a purpose, to make sure your character could carry your calling. Now, heaven knows you can. That's why you're hearing laughter in your spirit lately. Not literal sound, but a vibration of release. That sudden sense of lightness. That calm after the storm. That something feels different moment. That's heaven laughing through you. Do you remember those days when you asked, God, how much longer? When your prayers felt like they hit a ceiling, when it seemed like no progress was being made. Heaven heard you then, but it couldn't intervene until you passed the test of trust. And you did. You didn't need a sign to stay faithful. You didn't need evidence to keep believing. You trusted the whisper over the fish side, and that's what moved the heavens. Every spiritual test ends the same way. In silence, then laughter, because God doesn't celebrate like humans do. He doesn't throw parties, He releases presence. And when that presence fills your atmosphere, everything changes. Peace returns. Clarity arrives. Opportunities that once resisted you start chasing you. You don't have to chase anything now. Your obedience has already magnetized it. God's laughter means your name has been cleared in the spirit. It means every lie spoken against you has lost its grip. It means the pressure that once surrounded you has been flipped into promotion. Heaven isn't waiting for proof anymore. You are the proof. The battle you endured in silence is now evidence that you can be trusted with what comes next. Chosen one, listen. The laughter of heaven isn't loud, but it's unstoppable. It ripples through every dimension, shaking loose what belongs to you. It breaks generational patterns that once confined you. It restores what was stolen, multiplied, and it confuses every dark force that ever thought it won. Because when God laughs, every other voice goes silent. So if you feel lighter today, if your spirit feels strangely at peace, After a long storm, that's not coincidence. That's conclusion. You've reached the end of the test. You've crossed from proving to possessing. You no longer have to pray for victory. You're walking from it. This is heaven's laughter, echoing through your life. You made it. You learned. You grew. Now, watch what I do next. And what comes next isn't a reward, it's revelation. Revelation of who you are after the refining. Revelation of what happens when a chosen one endures the fire and comes out glowing instead of burned. That glow is heaven's laughter made visible. That peace you feel is the sound of God smiling through your story. So breathe, chosen one. The test is over, and heaven is laughing in victory. Chosen one, have you ever looked back at a season of pain and realized it didn't destroy you, it designed you? And did you ever stop to think that what you thought was your weakest moment might have been the very thing heaven used to prove your strength? That's what the enemy never saw coming. He didn't expect you to rise after everything you lost. He didn't expect your faith to survive disappointment. He didn't expect that after betrayal, silence, and exhaustion, you'd still be standing, not bitter, but brighter. He underestimated the kind of fire that forges a chosen one. The enemy always attacks based on old data. He targets who you were, not who you've become. He studied your past pain, your old triggers, your former reactions, but he didn't calculate your transformation. He thought you'd fight the same way, fear the same way, break the same way. He didn't realize that the lockdown didn't weaken you, it trained you. You see, while the enemy plotted chaos, heaven was crafting character. While he whispered lies, God whispered lessons. And while you were busy surviving, you were secretly being promoted. Every moment you thought was wasted became part of a divine blueprint that your adversary could never decode. Because God hides his greatest moves inside what looks like defeat. Remember the times when it felt like everything was against you? The doors closed. The people vanished. The opportunities slipped away. You thought it was punishment, but it was positioning. Because the enemy saw you surrounded by silence and assumed he'd won. But heaven saw you surrounded by angels and said, now they're ready. The enemy never saw peace coming. He never saw the version of you that could stay calm under fire. He never expected you to walk away from the argument, to bless those who cursed you, to pray instead of panic. That's when heaven started laughing, because the enemy's playbook stopped working. You outgrew the old tactics, and the moment you did, the battle shifted. He planned for your reaction, not your revelation. He prepared for your breakdown, not your breakthrough. He thought the test would make you doubt, but instead, it deepened your faith. He threw confusion your way, and you turned it into clarity. He sent isolation, and you turned it into intimacy with God. He tried to bury you, and you used the dirt to plant new roots. That's what he never saw coming. You learned how to turn warfare into worship. You learned how to turn losses into lessons. You learned how to stand so still that heaven could move mountains around you. The old you would have panicked. The new you prays first. The old you would have chased validation. The new you walks in quiet confidence, and that's why the enemy is panicking now, because there's nothing left for him to use against you. Tell me something, chosen one. How many times did you almost give up? How many nights did you cry thinking this is the end? And yet, here you are, still breathing, still believing, still chosen. That resilience wasn't luck, it was design. The Creator wrote endurance into your spirit long before the trial began. You were built to outlast every storm. Now the tables have turned. The very pain that once weakened you has become your proof. Every scar is a signature of divine survival. The enemy doesn't know what to do with someone who can't be broken by the same weapon twice. You've learned how to recognize his patterns and laugh at them. Because once you understand that the battle was never about destruction, but development, you stop fearing what comes next. Heaven's laughter in this season isn't just joy, it's justice, the laughter of fulfillment, the sound that says, everything the enemy meant for harm, I have already turned to glory. That's why you're noticing things shift in your favor without effort, why doors are opening without you knocking, why peace is returning without explanation, because you're walking in divine reversal, the phase the enemy can't stop or predict. He planned your fall. He never expected your rise. He planned your silence. He never expected your song. He planned your isolation. He never expected that solitude would make you unstoppable. Chosen one, you are the plot twist he didn't see coming. You're the proof that heaven's plans can't be intercepted, only delayed. And even delay becomes destiny in God's hands. What the enemy meant to end your story only began your legacy. You've become what he feared most, a believer who doesn't just survive trials, but transforms through them. So now, while the world sleeps and the enemy panics, heaven laughs, because the victory has already been written. And the punchline, you're still here. Chosen one, let me ask you something. Do you realize how much heaven can shift because of one decision? And have you ever stopped to wonder, what if the smallest act you made today changed the entire trajectory of your story? Because it did. Today wasn't random. It wasn't just another day. It was a day of activation. Something in the spiritual world registered your choice. The moment you decided to respond differently, to walk in peace, to forgive, to trust again, that single decision became the trigger that heaven had been waiting for. You didn't even know you were standing on sacred ground when you made it. You just followed that quiet nudge in your spirit, the one that whispered, do the right thing, even if no one sees. And right then, something in the unseen realm broke open, because heaven doesn't measure by size, it measures by obedience. One whisper of faith carries more weight than 1,000 shouted prayers of fear. And when you acted in alignment today, heaven moved faster than you could imagine. This is what divine cause and effect looks like. Every act of faith sends a signal upward, and heaven responds with movement. Today's choice, that moment you thought was small, became a spiritual signature saying, I'm ready. Ready to receive, ready to evolve, ready to walk fully in divine purpose. You see, God doesn't bless at random. He blesses and in sequence. Certain doors only open once your heart frequency matches their vibration. And when you chose peace today, instead of panic, love instead of reaction, trust instead of fear, you hit that frequency. That's why things are about to move. The blessing you've prayed for is no longer being processed. It's being released. Have you ever noticed how quiet it gets right before everything changes? That strange stillness where you sense movement but can't see it yet? That's where you are now. Heaven is rearranging the atmosphere around you to deliver what your obedience unlocked. It's happening quietly, strategically, because divine blessings don't arrive through noise. They arrive through alignment. You think you made a small choice. Heaven sees it as a spiritual announcement. When you chose restraint, you declared mastery. When you chose grace, you declared trust. When you chose peace, you declared readiness. And heaven responded immediately. Every chosen one reaches a moment like this, a single day that separates before and after. Today was that day for you. There's a reason you felt that shift in your spirit, that sudden calm after the tension, that breath that felt lighter than usual. That was heaven exhaling, because God had been waiting for this moment, the moment your heart finally aligned with the next level of your purpose. The decision you made today told the universe, I'm no longer operating from fear. I'm moving from faith, and faith always unlocks flow. Every blessing that once seemed delayed is now on divine schedule. Not to 1 second too early, not 1 second too late. The timing had to match the version of you who could handle it. And that version just revealed itself today. You don't need to chase what's yours anymore. You've already triggered its arrival. The energy around you is shifting because the test has transformed into testimony. The waiting season is turning into the receiving season. Heaven's laughter you've been feeling, that was celebration. Because the code was entered, the sequence completed, the blessing released. Chosen one, everything that happens next will seem effortless. Doors will open that you stopped knocking on. Peace will stay where it once left easily. People who drained you will fade quietly from your orbit, replaced by those who match your vibration. Because heaven doesn't just send blessings, it sends balance. Today's decision wasn't a small victory. It was the trigger for a chain reaction that will unfold over the coming weeks. Every prayer you've whispered, every seed you've planted, every tear you've cried, they've been waiting for this activation point, and now it's here. Heaven is no longer testing your patience, it's rewarding it. The laughter of God you heard in your spirit earlier, that wasn't amusement. It was announcement. The storm is over. The soil is ready, and the harvest has begun. So don't question if you did enough. Don't second-guess your strength. Heaven saw everything. And because of what you did today, a quiet, faithful, obedient choice, the Creator is smiling, saying, now I can trust them with more. The blessing isn't coming someday. It's already in motion. You triggered it. And the heavens are laughing because your obedience just opened the floodgates. Chosen one, pause for a moment. Have you truly realized what just happened in your story? And if you could hear heaven right now, if you could feel what's happening above you, would you believe that all of heaven is actually celebrating you? Because it is. The angels are not watching you with pity. They're watching you with pride. They saw every battle you faced in silence. They saw the tears you hid so no one would worry. They saw you keep believing when everything told you to quit. And now the celebration has begun. Not for what you've gained, but for who you've become. Heaven celebrates growth more than arrival. It doesn't clap for possessions. It rejoices over perseverance. You made it through storms that should have drowned you. You survived attacks that were designed to silence you. And through it all, your heart never turned cold. That is divine victory. The Creator is laughing. Chosen one, not because the journey was funny, but because the outcome was certain all along. God saw every step you took, even the trembling ones. He saw the days you doubted yourself but still prayed anyway. He saw how you carried pain with grace, how you loved through loss, how you forgave even when no one apologized. That's why the heavens are rejoicing now, because your endurance has proven your identity. There's a sound moving through the spiritual realm tonight, a sound like music without instruments, a rhythm of joy that only heaven knows. It's the vibration of fulfillment, the divine echo that says, "It's done." The angels are celebrating the completion of a chapter. The tests have served their purpose. The refining is complete. And now, heaven shifts from observation to honor. Tell me, chosen one, can you feel it? That peace in your chest that wasn't there last week, that warmth that keeps returning when you think about what you've overcome. That's not coincidence. That's confirmation. It's heaven's way of saying, you passed. Every time you stayed kind when bitterness tried to creep in, heaven took note. Every time you helped someone while you were hurting, it was recorded. Every time you surrendered control and trusted the process, a new thread was woven into your destiny. Now that tapestry is complete, and it's beautiful, radiant, resilient, unmistakably divine. You don't need validation from the world anymore. You've already received heaven's applause. The same God who watched you struggle is now smiling as your spirit rises. And that smile carries power. It's not symbolic, it's active. When heaven celebrates, it sends movement. Doors open, favor flows, protection intensifies. You are entering a season where what once resisted you will now recognize you. Heaven isn't celebrating because the battle is over. It's celebrating because you've changed during it. The old version of you couldn't have stood in this energy, but the new you, grounded, wise, untouchable, was born through fire and came out glowing. That glow is the reflection of divine laughter. That peace is the proof of heaven's joy. So now, chosen one, your job is simple. Receive it. Let the blessings flow without guilt. Let the favor come without explanation. You've already paid the price, not in money, but in faith, patience, and surrender. You earned this season through trust. Heaven celebrates not with noise, but with alignment. Everything that was once delayed is now lining up perfectly. What was blocked will begin to move. What was broken will begin to bloom. And what was confusing will make sudden sense. Because the moment heaven celebrates, creation cooperates. The laughter of God is echoing over your name tonight. It's saying, this one made it. This one learned. This one can be trusted with more. And as heaven celebrates, it's sending you signs, in dreams, in numbers, in sudden peace. Pay attention. The confirmation will arrive quietly but clearly. So, chosen one, breathe. You don't need to chase. You don't need to fight. You've entered the reward stage of the process. Heaven is already applauding. You just have to stand still long enough to hear it. And when you do, you'll realize the truth. You weren't waiting for the blessing. The blessing was waiting for you to become this version of yourself. Heaven is celebrating you, not because you're perfect, but because you're faithful. And that faithfulness has crowned you with divine victory. The laughter has begun. The doors are opening, and all of heaven is smiling your name.